Sehr geehrte Frau Bundespräsidentin, sehr geehrte
President
Frau
of the Confederation, President of the European Commission, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, members of the press, welcome to the presidential statements regarding the substantive conclusion of negotiations between Switzerland and the EU. The President of the Confederation will first address you before we hear from the President of the European Commission. We have simultaneous interpretation of these statements, and later today at 3 o'clock, a press conference will take place where further details will be discussed in terms of the substantive conclusions. Within this setting, we will not have a Q&A session. Over to you, President Amherd. Thank you, Madam President. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm delighted to have welcomed you to Bern today and to see the conclusion of the substantive negotiations between Switzerland and the European Union. Together, we honour this momentous step for the bilateral approach and the intensive process that has led us to this point. Our negotiation teams have been able to develop balanced solutions in the interests of both sides with great dedication. On the 13th of December, the Federal Council discussed the state of negotiations, and today the last issues were decided upon. My colleagues on the Federal Council's European Policy Committee will be addressing at a press conference after our statements the details of the individual points. Today is a milestone for the stabilisation and further development of our bilateral relations. This is in the interests of Switzerland's and the EU's population. Our economies, employees, consumers, students and researchers benefit from this. The entire society does. In view of the current geopolitical situation, this is a particularly valuable outcome. Sturdy bilateral relations can help us to reinforce the continent as a whole. Switzerland and Europe stand for fundamental values: democracy, the rule of law, and an economy that combines entrepreneurial thinking and social achievement. This is a model that prioritizes people. It is our responsibility to ensure that these values stand the test of time. For this reason, in particular, the negotiation delegations left no stone unturned. In 200 challenging sessions, they sought out solutions that would work for both sides. This process has now come to a substantive conclusion, and the Federal Council is convinced that the outcome of the negotiation is good and beneficial to both partners. I thank the delegations for their extraordinary efforts. I thank the involved departments and employees of the federal government who have helped shape this process. Without close and constructive collaboration between the departments, a result as we have now achieved it would not have been possible. I would like to thank in particular the cantons and economic and social partners who are indispensable in achieving solutions in a country that is federal as Switzerland is. I thank the European Commission and you, Madam President, for our intensive and trusting collaboration over the past months. Madam President, Ursula, we opened negotiations on the 18th of March. Before that, we had the pleasure of discussing matters at the WF in Davos. Overall, we have met over half a dozen times, most recently at the European Political Community Summit in Budapest. A most important topic for these meetings was security in Europe, and in particular the Ukraine war. We have also discussed the increasing conflicts around the world, the fragmented global order, and the growing economic protectionism. This is the global backdrop against which Switzerland and the EU have been addressing their bilateral relations. I am very pleased that we have come to a good conclusion and that the goals of the Federal Council have been achieved. I thank you, Ursula. Thank you for your dedication to this process. This marks the beginning of the political debate in Switzerland. After a phase of legal review and the formal conclusion of negotiations, including initialing, Switzerland, its parliament and voters will take the lead. Democratic processes take time. They are not always easy, but they are highly legitimate. Madam President, ladies and gentlemen, the outcome of negotiations that this meeting centres around is the result of hard work. In an environment that is difficult from a global perspective, this is a strong, positive signal that Switzerland and the EU were able to reach an understanding. Thank you. Thank you, President Amherd. I'd like to hand over to the President of the European Commission. Thank you, President Viola. This is a joyful day. This agreement between the EU and Switzerland is historic. This marks the beginning of a long-lasting cooperation, but it's also part of a larger context that is highly important, because we are now giving joint answers to the global realities that we all have to face. We are living in an era of extremely rapid change with many shifts ongoing. Competition is increasing, technology is progressing, rapidly changing the way we pursue business and also how we live together in a democratic society. Today's world is highly interconnected. Geopolitical tensions from Ukraine to the Middle East to Asia therefore have immediate consequences. This applies to Switzerland as to the 27 member states. Against this challenging backdrop, strong partnerships like ours are not only an advantage, they are necessary. Switzerland and the EU do have shared values such as democracy, the rule of law, and our social market economy. But also, we are within an international order. We share a continent, Europe. Our businesses rely on the same transcontinental network of road, rail, and waterways. We benefit from interconnected scientific environments, supply chains, systems. We have the same languages, the same cultural roots, and more often than not, the same background. And so we are as close as we could possibly be. This understanding between Switzerland and the EU now recognises what has grown between us over the course of history. Beyond this, our collaboration today has been elevated to a new level, providing a new basis for our rich collaboration. This agreement makes sure that our partnership will stand the test of time, so that both sides can leverage the full potential of our close collaboration. There have been intensive negotiations, and in these it has been possible to safeguard the interests of Switzerland and the EU in a balanced way. This means that we are equally able to compete irrespective of the market participants from Switzerland or the EU. Everyone will have access to the EU single market. We will also be able to safeguard our high standards when it comes to transport, electricity, renewable energies, and in additional new fields. This provides us with a sense of safety, both for businesses and for consumers. We can also guarantee the free movement of persons for EU citizens in Switzerland and the other way around for Swiss citizens in the EU. Here too, we have been able to arrive at practical solutions on topics that we've been discussing for a long time, such as wage questions and also the duration of stay in various countries. The reality here is that behind our close partnership, there are real people. For hundreds of thousands of citizens, the borders between us has long since become virtual. They study across borders, they commute across borders on a daily basis, in the car, on the train, on their bikes. They live their lives irrespective of their passports. And the rights of citizens on both sides of this story have been safeguarded with this agreement. We also note that Switzerland makes a contribution to the EU. This is important to us because it's in the joint interest of the EU and Switzerland to be able to pursue the single market. And I'm delighted to see that we have been able to address new topics and new potential for the protection of our health, for collaboration on satellites and aerospace. Our long-standing collaboration has been extremely successful in the fields of research. We would like to further deepen this. There are many clever people on either side who have been long waiting for consistency. This applies to Horizon, but to many other programs as well. And for you, we have good news today, in that from the 1st of January 2025, the Commission will have in place transitional guidelines so that there can be immediate access to the EU programs. This agreement is also in application to different levels because we have this shared position at a global level. Together, we can arrive at better answers to questions that arise in this ever more complex world. We have shared issues in terms of supply, travel, study, global commerce. And together, we would like to see innovative synergies, promote these. Our agreement will make sure that we can stay at the top of our game in terms of innovation. Swiss universities are frequented by EU students, and the same fees are to apply. The same applies also the other way around for Swiss students in the EU. Switzerland has an excellent reputation for research and its infrastructure and the unique EU single market, therefore, are able to leverage their full potential, which arrives at a package that will give the leading economies of the world the opportunity to compete successfully on AI, biotechnologies, renewable energies, to name only a few. Europe's strength is to be able to conclude partnerships on an equal footing. We emphasize understanding, mutual trust, and mutual benefit. At this point, I would like explicitly to thank those who led the negotiations, Ignacio Cassis and Maros Sefcovic, and everyone who have been working on this relentlessly and have pushed this forward. 9 months of intensive negotiations, and you've already said more than 200 sessions. For people in Switzerland and the EU, this agreement is an excellent basis for many good years together, and we have you, among others, to thank for this. We know that this is not the end. This is the beginning of the next phase, ratification on both sides. Good, constructive spirit has led us thus far, and we hope that it will continue to carry us through the upcoming weeks and months. Let us show the world what is possible when good neighbours work together in a trusting way for a good future for democracy and the rule of law in Europe. Thank you. Thank you, President of the European Commission. Thank you, President of the Confederation. Here at the Bernerhof, we have come to a conclusion. At 3 o'clock, we will have the press conference of the Federal Council, and there you will have the opportunity to ask any questions you might like to ask. Thank you very much, and have a nice afternoon. Thank you.